Hello and welcome to ACT Prep. I'm your English teacher, Miss Abear. We have been looking at skills and strategies to work within these skills on the ACT English portion of the test that you guys took, or the practice test that you took several lessons ago. The last time we met, we were working within sentence structure under the Conventions of Standard English. And as a reminder, Conventions of Standard English makes up more than 50%, more than half of your test. So in each of these Conventions of Standard English, you have several categories and subcategories. We just finished one of the categories of sentence structure. Now we're going to be looking at usage. Usage has 6 learning targets. You've got subject-verb agreement, pronoun antecedent agreement, pronoun forms and cases, vague or ambiguous pronouns, frequently confused words, and idiomatic prepositional phrases. Today, we're going to be looking at subject-verb agreement, frequently confused words, and idiomatic prepositional phrases. So, let's dig in. Subject-verb agreement. We have talked about in the past, every sentence must have a subject and a verb, and it must be a complete thought, right, in order to be a sentence. The subjects and verbs must agree in number. If the subject is singular, the verb must be singular, and vice versa. Agreement errors can be easy to see when the subject directly precedes the verb. However, as sentences become increasingly complex, it is common for subjects and verbs to be further apart, especially when you're looking at modifiers. In these cases, it's important for you to be able to identify the true subject of a sentence. Watch out for those prepositional phrases, especially of those revolving the word of or of the. Those can often create opportunities for agreement errors by separating the subject from the verb. So let's look at some examples from your practice test. You actually have 2. You have number 23 and number 56. So let's look at those. The widths of the lines corresponded perfectly to the widths of the zebra's stripes. Okay? So you've got this prepositional phrase of the lines, but you still have widths is a plural noun, so you need a plural verb. Corresponded is a plural verb, so you have no change. The word has corresponded. Has is singular, is singular, and corresponds. Those are all singular verbs. All 3 of those are. So you know that no change is the correct answer there. So let's look at number 56. Over 100 years later, the contributions Young made possible has been counted among the most significant in the park's history. Again, this one is a little more confusing. Let's see if we can identify what has been counted. So that's how you identify the subject. What has been counted? So you have over 100 years later. We know that is a prepositional phrase. We have the contributions Young made possible. So let's try out which one of these has been counted among the most significant in park's history. Is it Young? Has Young been counted the most significant in the park's history? No, there have been other people that have made significant contributions, right? Ooh, I said that word. The contributions that he made. So if we take that part out, contributions is plural. Has been is singular. So which of these verbs over here is plural? Well, we know was is singular. And we know is singular. So the only one that works is are, because that one is plural. You really need to work with your teacher if subject-verb agreement is something that you struggle with. When I was in elementary school, we had these charts that we used. Khan Academy will work with you on those charts. So, and we'll look at a little bit of that when we go into pronouns. We're going to look at singular pronouns and plural pronouns and how those work, and that will also help you with subject-verb agreement. But look at those charts on how to make sure your subjects are singular or plural and how those verbs go together. Most of us use conventional or standard English, and so most of us do speak in standard English, and so our subjects and our verbs typically do agree when we speak. So most of the time, as long as you can isolate that subject and the verb, then put that together, and it can be more fluid for us to understand subject-verb agreement. But if that doesn't work, you may need to study that a little more closely in order to get your subject and verbs to kind of agree. Let's look next at the list are those commonly confused words. I will tell you on this practice test that you took, there were no commonly confused words that were listed, but know that ACT does not test spelling. It does test those confused words. Confused words are often homophones, which are two words with different spellings and meanings that sound the same or very similar. Let's look at some of those commonly confused words. Then and than, your and your. Y'all, these are probably the most ones that you guys mess up on. So you need to understand, if you see an apostrophe, that is indicating a conjunction. So your is a pronoun. You, your, Y-O-U, apostrophe R-E, equals you are. So you have a subject and a verb. There is a pronoun. They are, you have that apostrophe, that's a subject and a verb, and there is a location. This is probably the most one that you guys get wrong, because IT apostrophe S does not show possession. IT apostrophe S stands for, oh, I messed that one up, stands for it is. So you have a subject and a verb. Remember, we have apostrophe there, so that is who is. Whose shows possession. And when you say the word must have, that stands for must have, not must of. Must of is never a correct spelling of must have, which is must have. So make sure that you understand would have, could have, should have will never be. Could have, would have, should have is could have, would have, should have, and that is apostrophe VE. All right, those are your most commonly confused words. They occur most frequently. This particular test, like I said, did not test any of those, so I don't have any specific examples from the ACT test, but I do know that Khan Academy has some that you can study or you can watch those videos, and he pulls some of those ideas from the ACT tests. So next you have idiomatic prepositional phrases. These are expressions that we use, and there are some that are very specific. So ACT does not test you on idiomatic expressions, like what do they mean. They do assess your knowledge of how prepositions tend to be used idiomatically within prepositional phrases. So just like your commonly confused words, this type of item is difficult to study for because you may not, to study every single idiomatic expression would be very difficult. And I think if you remember, I'm positive I said at the very beginning of these tutorials, I told you the most or the best way that you can study for the ACT English portion of the test is A, to edit your peers' papers, your peers' essays, but the other is to read. Read wide and read deep, because that is the way that you're going to be introduced more often to these idiomatic expressions. I'm going to put a list on the board in just a second. And when I show you this list, your jaw is going to drop, because according to actexam.net, this is a list of the most common idiomatic expressions that ACT uses. Are y'all ready to study this list? Can you even read that? Look how small I had to make those words in order to put just the most common ones up on this board. It's a lot. So the best way for you to study these idiomatic expressions is to read far, read wide, read deep, read fiction, read nonfiction, so that you understand what each of these, the correct positioning of these words. So let's look. ACT actually tests you on this practice test that you guys did 4 times on these idiomatic expressions. So number 7 says, during a visit to a virtual airport control center, Anderson viewed panoramic images of the red planet, courtesy from a video provided of the Mars Global Surveyor satellite. Well, because I've been exposed to this, I know it's of a video provided by, or of provided by. This could be literally anything else. So we're always working within that underlined portion on these idiomatic prepositional phrases. You just have to know that that's what it is. So if they've got, I don't even know how to make sure to identify them other than it just doesn't sound right. And I know I've told you that sometimes you can't always go off of the way things sound, but on these that test your idiomatic prepositional phrases, again, it's what they sound like. So let's look at 33. The mural titled Celadon Remnants is artist Jean Shin's homage on the Korean American community in Flushing. Well, we know homage to. So homage is part of that idiomatic prepositional phrase. We pay homage to something. So that's how I know what that is. The answer is to. The next 2 are items number 50 and 71. I'm going to pause here because I want 2 different groups. I want you to work with a partner, and I want you to kind of explore these, and then I want 2 different people to come up and explain 50 and explain 71. Great job. Okay, so you know that number 51, you guys did a really good job with the correct answer. Ooh, I didn't even highlight that one for you. Look at me go. But you should have the correct answer. The U.S. Army, which from 1891 to 1913 was responsible for improving national parks during the summer months, had managed to complete only about 6 miles of the road to the giant forest. Letter J is the correct one there, the best answer. And 71, which are clones of the originating adult, right? That's what you should have had. That's what I heard some of you saying, and I'm pretty sure that the person who got up and explained that did the right one. I don't remember exactly, but I know that that was a question. Again, go back to those Khan Academy videos. Watch those as much as you can. I will tell you that the majority of the people who struggle with these idiomatic expressions are going to be your English language learners, and it's very difficult to study these. But if you look beside me, wrong side here, you will see I have books on both sides of my stage because it is important, or both sides of my classroom. You know that reading is very important to me, and it should be very important to you. Reading as much as you can is the best way to get practice with your idiomatic prepositional phrases. So that's all that I have for you today. Until next time, happy learning.